Hi everyone, welcome to our third and final installment of Healthy Dynamics Summer School for 2020. We have been focused this summer for June, July, and August on getting to know you. So I'm real excited about this month's programming. We have some more experienced residents, we have a new resident, and we have a couple staff members. So our folks for this Healthy Dynamics are Sheila Vaughn, who is one of our managers with Culinary Services, Judy Beazley, who lives in apartment 4310 there in McDowell and has been with us since 2013, Karen Engelke, who is a new resident in McDowell as well. She lives in apartment 4101 and has been there since May of this year. Greg Davis, who is one of our chefs with the culinary department, and then Ellen Wright, who lives also in McDowell, apartment 4107, and Ellen has lived at Still Hopes since 2008. So I'm real excited about this session of Healthy Dynamics. Welcome and enjoy.
My name is Sheila Vaughn. I am the Culinary Service Manager. I've been here for about 15, actually going on 16 years. I came here from Massachusetts in 2004 along with my great husband. We've been together for 25 years and we have one stepson. He currently is semi-retired, but he is an executive chef at Deepwood Estates in Lexington. He also was played in the on a professional football team, the San Diego Chargers, for 1 year in 1978. So that was a great accomplishment. Yeah. We have one stepson who is here and lives in South Carolina. He works at a data entry company, so he's doing very well. I am the oldest of 5 girls. Most of my sisters, my last 2 sisters live in Massachusetts, and we decided to come and make this career move down to South Carolina. I actually never worked in hospitality management, and so it was a new thing. I had to put on a different hat, make a career move, and that brought me to here to Still Hopes. I started off working in the dish room and helping out in the healthcare units. Kind of moved my way up, myself up in the dining room, and then to hostess, and then to service manager. Actually, my husband has come over and judged some of the bakery contest in the last couple of years, so that was fun. I work with a great group of people in the culinary department. We have a good time, get along with each other, work together as a big team like a family, and that's one of the reasons why hopefully I will continue my reign here at Still Hopes. I'm glad, and I think it's a great opportunity to be part of the Still Hopes family. When I'm not at Still Hopes, let me see. I enjoy reading, cooking. If I have a chance, I love going to Charleston. That's one of my favorite places. So that's one of the things I do enjoy. I'm a movie buff, so I'm a black and white movie, so I love watching TCM. I just want the residents to know that I enjoy being here. They are definitely a part of my family.
Hello, I'm Judy Beazley, and I've gotten to know so many special people. So this getting to know you was perfect for me because it let me remember lots of good things. I knew a lot of people before I moved here. Charlie and I moved here 6.5 years ago, which when I was counting up, it seemed like amazing, but that's how long it's been. We moved in November of 2013, and that was about a week or 2 before all the remodeling started. So we learned our way around, and 2 weeks later we had to learn another way around. And that was really interesting, but we're very glad to be here as part of this special family of residents and staff. Charlie moved to Rose Gardens Memory Care last year. and I'm in an apartment, the same apartment. When I left Columbia to go to Virginia, where Charlie had retired, built a house near the Parkway and near Virginia Tech, which was the reason he came back to Virginia from Connecticut. We lived there, golly, from then until we came here in 2013. So, but when I left here, I left my students at Dreher High School. And when you talk about special people that you've met along the way, I also had the middle school for a couple of years, and this was the first year that they had had a nurse in every school. I was thrilled when I got here and found out that was going on, because in Virginia they had one nurse for an entire county, and it was not good. So we worked on that and got some grants, and by the time I left I had 4 schools part-time. So I think it's gotten better since then, and there's a lot of rural areas in that area. These students at Dreher, at a time when I was living alone, were my family, and so was the faculty, and so were the friends. It was just a really good experience. Interestingly enough, a lot of those kids were the children of my friends I had here when I lived here before. So it was interesting to see the ones I remembered like this, who were now like this. Okay. Yeah, I got that. I also left not only the high school here, but the Governor's School for the Arts summer program, which at that point was 5 weeks in the summer at Furman. Most beautiful campus, and I came from Duke, but it is absolutely gorgeous at Furman as well. I left my opportunity to be there 5 weeks every summer, and to live in the dorm, be on duty 24/7, and also in the free time when there wasn't anything that needed me, I could go to all the concerts. So I met William Warfield and took his blood pressure one time, and he's the man who sang Old Man River in Showboat. I was so excited I could hardly take his blood pressure. But there were a lot of people who came in. They had, national artists as well as local, and of course the students performed. And I loved music and had got 10 years of piano when I was growing up and kept on playing on the side. So that was a real draw for me. So I hated giving that up, but that's what you do when you move. The students were so incredibly talented. It was a pleasure to be with them and their teachers. All of this nursing thing began with when Duke University gave me a scholarship to go to nursing school, or I would never have been there. 4 years, 3 summers, a very excellent program, and I will always be grateful for that opportunity. Excuse me. Okay, and the background, other piece of the background that's important there was when I was a volunteer school nurse here in Columbia, South Carolina. I've lived here 3 times, so this is going to sound back and forth. I was a volunteer school nurse at Benson Elementary, and for those of you who live here, that's if you go across the river on Blossom Street and take a right on Pickens, there's a little school that sits back there, and the education department at USC had a model school project, and they decided that they needed a nurse to have a model school. So at the time, my first husband was a grad student in education, and they found out that I was a nurse and I wasn't working, so I became the volunteer nurse. And that was great, because I'd been looking for some way to reconnect as I took care of 2 boys at that point. There were other places I moved a bit. In Charlotte, another exciting thing I got involved in was a neighborhood medical clinic in downtown Charlotte, which served the oldest housing project in the state, and another a little bit newer one across the street, and all the houses around there. And I picked up my Charlotte Observer one morning and read the ads, and it said they needed a nurse to be the head nurse for that project. My church was involved in starting that, so I went and interviewed, got the job, and started out with 2 brand new doctors straight out of residency who were younger than I was. That was a first. But they had remodeled an old elementary school right across the creek there, the bridge, where the patients could actually just walk out of their doors and walk over to the old school and come in the clinic. And that was just probably the project of my life. It was just very, very special. I had to do a lot of screening because we had lots of walk-ins, but we saw kids there, but it was mostly family. And so restricted to that neighborhood for the 3-year project that they had gotten the grant for. So I did that for 3 years, and it was one of the more exciting things I've done, especially when emergencies walked in the door. But we got everything taken care of, and that was fine. In Anderson, I was there for a while, and I worked at DHEC. So when the DHEC regulations come out, I can identify with all of that very well. And I ran several programs. But then I decided to teach in a high school. So there was a little rural high school that had a program that next year after I was there became a certified CNA training program. And this was 11th and 12th grade kids. We had, from some grant they got, the best equipped lab I've ever seen, including the one at Duke that I studied in. And this was this little rural high school in Ivastar, South Carolina, sitting on the Georgia line. But somebody got busy and found a good grant. And I had seniors for 3 hours and juniors for 2 hours and a 9th grade homeroom first thing in the morning. That's a good way to wake up. So I did that, and then they got that course approved. But I moved again back to Columbia. So then we let's see, what were we doing? We were renting on the river, and that was lovely. We were on the Lower Saluda in an apartment, waiting to figure out where we were going and when our name would come up. And so we waited 6 years. Some of that was our choice, and some was waiting for a vacancy. But we were on 3rd floor of McDowell, and I live on 3rd floor of McDowell, and Charlie's in Rose Gardens in the memory unit, and that's going okay. Going okay. What was I going to tell you? Okay. I want to be sure and tell you about one more thing, and because it involves some of the best memories I have. International students. We decided we wanted to be community friends for international students. That was when we were at Virginia Tech, 2001. So we went over to Virginia Tech, and Charlie said, how about if we work with a Korean student? Because I was in Korea in the 50s, and I said, sure, that'll be fine. So we met the young man that we now call our 6th son. We have 5, but he's our 6th. And actually some years we see him more than we do our sons. He was studying civil engineering, had come from Seoul, Korea. His father was a civil engineering professor, and he was at North Carolina State that summer. And so Sungi was emailing back and forth with Virginia Tech, and the lady who was in their center said, let me show you and tell you about this one, because he just sends the cutest emails, and he has so much personality, and we were hooked as soon as we read what he had written. And so we met him when he got there. He walked in the room for cookies and welcome and stuff, and we bonded immediately. So while we were there, he brought 18 Korean students for Thanksgiving dinner one year, and somebody was there almost every week. He went home, met someone his aunt had arranged from the school where she taught, and proposed to her at Niagara Falls when she came over, and they got married. And so the joy of my life right now is that he is now assistant professor at Georgia Southern in Georgia, not far down the road. And so some of you may have already seen him. He's now married and has a little boy about 7, who weighed under 2 pounds when he was born and was in the intensive care unit for 2 years, and we all followed that for a very scary couple of years. Bright as he can be, absolutely not, as far as I can tell, affected by all the things he went through, including heart surgery, lung surgery, and things like that. So, and his middle name is Charles. And that happened because they called us and said, we would like for you to give us an American middle name for our son. And Charlie looked at me immediately and said, well, I see nothing wrong with Charles. So his name is Uil Charles now. And he knows who Charlie is and is very attached to him when he sees him. So that's always a special time. When we came here, we decided we wanted to do that too. So we asked people, who do you talk to? And they said, yeah, there's a program at the university. Wound up in charge of the arrivals coming through the airport, but that meant a whole lot of computer work before they got here, and sometimes helping grad students find places to live and where to look. And I was on the computer at 2 o'clock in the morning and that kind of thing. I really hated giving that up, but we got to a point where we just couldn't do it anymore. Certainly could not be in charge of that big a program. But we still hear Facebook is wonderful because I can see pictures of them now that they've gone back home. And that's as far away as Mongolia and, China. And by the way, if you don't know, this apartment complex back here houses a lot of Chinese grad students. And they sometimes are walking in the park over there. So those were definitely lots of special people that I've met. And I feel very blessed to have had all these opportunities. Moving is not always an easy thing to do, but it is certainly worth it when you can find these kinds of things to enrich your life with. And that is all I have to say.
My name is Karen Laws Engelke. I've been in Still Hope since May 1st, I believe, so just a few months. But before I took up residency here, I've lived in 60 different places. And that's a lot of moving around. So I know how to pack, I know how to unpack, and I know how to decorate places. Okay. But my father was in the Navy, and we moved. He usually would have 2-year duty stations, but we'd always move twice. So we lived 1 year at a time in places, and that's why these 60 places kind of just stacked up. But I can remember most of them. So we lived primarily on the East Coast, but I also lived in London for 2 years when I was 8, 9, and 10, and then in the Philippines when I was 13, 14, 15. And I've done a lot of traveling because that's just what we did as a Navy family. But also my son Matthew, my youngest son, Matthew Engelke, spent a year in Zimbabwe. And he was doing research for a paper that he wrote on Christianity, and I forget what else, but I read the book, and he did dedicate it to me, which was very nice. But so I have 3 birth children and a stepson. My oldest son, Richard, is a doctor. In fact, I think he has patients here. It still hopes. Richard Laws. He's a dermatologist. My second child, Cheryl Laws, was in the Navy. She went to the Naval Academy just as my father did, and her father did, and she did. And she flew fighter jets for quite a while and landed on aircraft carriers. And I remember her telling me the first time she landed, she came down and hit the deck, and the plane just kept rolling. And there are people called grapes because they wear purple shirts. And all the grapes rushed out and grabbed the plane so she couldn't go over the edge. But she was quite an aggressive fighter pilot, and as was her father, Dick Laws. My youngest son, Matthew Engelke, was from my second marriage. I've been widowed twice, one fast in Vietnam and one slow with prostate cancer. And in both situations, the surviving spouse does a lot of dealing with. As your first of all, my husband Dick would be gone for 7 months at a time, and there was no cell phone. There were nothing. We had to wait about 2 or 3 weeks between letters, so there would be like a 4 to 6 week cycle when you got a letter, responded, and got a response. So time was different then. We do everything so quickly now, but time was very different when I was growing up. So where was I? I got Matthew. I have a stepson, Ed, who was in the Marine Corps. Richard was in the Army. Cheryl was in the Navy. Ed was in the Marine Corps. And Matthew is a professional. He's never done any service except for writing books about Zimbabwe. So he lives in New York City, by the way, teaches at Columbia. So my life has been a series of chapters, I guess would be a good way to put it, which is great because I read a lot of books. I love reading books. And I can escape from anywhere by picking up a book and reading it. I was raised a Methodist. My parents, as I said, were from Oklahoma, and we had no stained glass at all. But when I lived in England, we went to churches and cathedrals that had magnificent stained glass. And I realized later it was because all of the service was spoken in Latin. So the common person didn't understand Latin, but the stained glass windows told the stories of what the sermons were about. So I was very interested in stained glass, starting in Stony Brook, Long Island. And there was a wonderful woman there, Rose Wellings Crispin, who taught stained glass. And I apprenticed with her for 3 years. And there are 2 ways to hold stained glass together. One is lead foil, which is shaped like an eye, so there's a rounded top and then a slot and a rounded bottom. And the 1/8 inch glass fits into the sides, and you putty it. There's also something that Tiffany came up with called copper foil, and it's a very thin strip of copper. It's maybe 1/4 inch, and you wrap it around the edge of the glass, and then put 2 pieces together and solder it with lead. Solder is usually lead and tin. There's a mix. So that's what holds it together. And when you're making windows, and I may have mentioned my first 10 customers were doctors' second wives, so you end up with a lot of scraps. And I'm not one to throw things away, despite moving all over the world and packing up and down a lot. So I started making jewelry. This is a brooch. If they're under $20, they're called pins. But if they're over that, they're called brooches. And when you get really small, you make earrings. These are fused, by the way. There is 14 karat gold and then sprinkled with little chips. And you heat it in a kiln and it all kind of mushes and melts together. Here's another that I made. And it has rounded edges, so it really got hot to melt all that stuff in the middle. And then I also started using wire to wrap around and put other things in. And on the back it's glued, so the little beads and wire are glued. My sister was an administrator in Chicago in a hospital. Her name is Rebecca, and she must have sold 600 brooches for me. I would ship them off to her, and she would send me money. It was a really, really nice thing, and it got rid of all my scraps. I also started making vessels. I actually have some quite big ones, but I have no idea where they are. But this is a small one, and you put this stuff, this paper stuff that doesn't burn, down there, and then you stack up glass all the way around, and then you cook it, and it all melts together. And I call these spirit vessels because when you know someone, you might know this part of the person, or maybe this part of the person, but God knows us from the inside out. And so these spirit vessels were very, very popular with my clients. But here at Still Hopes, I'm finding that people are so friendly. You know, when one has had a life like mine where you're always the newbie and you're always kind of making new friends and introducing yourself, it's different here. People come up to me and introduce themselves, or they read my name tag and they know my name is Karen and I have no clue who they are. But I'm really enjoying getting to know all the resources here at Still Hopes. And it looks like I'm going to be here for a while because I'm not planning on croaking off anytime soon. But if I see you in the halls, please stop and say hello and tell me your name so I can see you back. Thank you.
My name is Gregory Davis. I'm the executive chef here at Still Hopes. I've been here since 2016. Really great environment to work in. First time working in healthcare. Before coming to Still Hopes, I was the executive chef of the Columbia Marriott for 13 years on Hampton and Main Street. Before then, I worked for Marriott International. I traveled the country, opening hotels for Marriott International. Wanted to kind of get off of the road and just kind of make Columbia home, and ended up here at Still Hopes, and it's been great. I've seen a lot of growth since I've been here, with the opening of Greenway a year ago, and just the growth of the culinary department as a whole. I think my biggest fascination since I've been here have been the residents. Getting to know a lot of the residents and them getting to know me has been fun. I think the best way to really interact and get to know a person is over a meal. Eating dinner or supper in my household growing up, it was really important. That's when I got to meet neighbors and got to know people in the community when my grandmother invited them over. So it was a real big deal. So majority of my family, we owned restaurants, catering companies, and was in food service in one way or another. So that's how I got into food service, and I've been in food service for over 32 years now, and I love it. I wouldn't do anything else. It's a part of me. I think, breathe, eat food service. It's just a part of me, and it's a part of who I am today. I love seeing the smiles on the residents' faces as I pass them in the hallways, and them thanking me for such a good job that the culinary department does on a daily basis. So I think in a nutshell, it's the good and the bad that comes along with it that just excites me. When it's not as good, it makes me work harder to improve it. Typical days coming in early in the mornings, making rounds with your employees, seeing where they're at, looking at menus for days coming. Any day that we're currently in, we've prepped everything and got everything together a couple of days previous. So it's always staying a day ahead, 2 days max. but it's preparing food. Some days I'm in production, some days I'm not, some days I'm just doing admin. So it depends on the day, depends on the level of staff that I have in that day, but it's cooking, talking, and just getting things done. Majority of the time, new menu items come from our residents. These are items that they would like to see. Maybe they have seen certain things on a TV show or read a book about it. So the residents bring a lot of ideas to the table. I ask a lot of questions when I see them, when I pass them, what would they like to see? Or it's just down home favorites that I like to see on the menu. I constantly cook. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter and a 9-year-old granddaughter that I have full custody of, that I take care of on a daily basis. And hopefully one day they will be chefs as well. But we constantly cook, we constantly bake. So it's not only here at Still Hopes, it's at home too.
What are some of their favorites that you've made for them?
They love chocolate chip cookies and chocolate cake. So not only am I'm a chef, I think I'm turning into an inspired pastry chef as well, just for them wanting to stay in the kitchen.
I'm Ellen Wright, and I'm a resident of McDowell, and next month I will have been here for 12 years. And I thought I would tell you a little bit about my kind of strange, unusual upbringing. I grew up on Edisto Beach, and at the time, for many years, my family were the only residents, full-time, year-round residents of the beach. We children thought we owned it. My father was in real estate. He was an agent for selling the lots on the beach. And then as the cottages were built, he was an agent for, a rental agent for the owners of the cottages. And I'd like to remember that from our front porch, there was not one thing between us and the horizon. We had a wonderful location on the front beach. And as children, when I say we, there were 4 children, no boys, all girls. And we had good shell collections and fossil collections. And our shell collections were not the broken, worn, colorless ones. They had to be as whole as possible and hopefully with some color still left in them. And our fossils were amazing. So much so the Charleston Museum used to ask us for some of them. We were very grateful to the museum in Charleston because they identified some of the things that we picked up and we're not sure what they were. We had a tremendous mastodon tooth that was perfect looking. They said it was from a young animal because none of the points on the tooth were worn down at all. Really was a beautiful item. And they taught us at our early age that those fossils were between 6 and 19 million years old. However, since then we've learned that they were many million years older than that. And we enjoyed gathering some specimens for the Charleston Museum, some of the crustacea that we found and collected, and that was an interesting part of our growing up. Our parents encouraged our learning the proper names of the shells, the Latin names, and our mother encouraged us to learn the botanical names of the plants and wildflowers and plants in the woods on the back beach. And grew up enjoying fishing a lot. My father always had a boat. We might not have had a lot of other things, but he always had a boat. We children used hand lines. The adults used rods and reels. But with the hand line, we could feel the fish bite and could even got where we could identify what type of fish was biting. And we were 50 miles from Charleston. That was town to us where we loved to go, but didn't get to go very often. My father attended his real estate business there at the courthouse and the bank. And we were 50 miles away from a hospital, a doctor, a drugstore, very remote at that time. But then I, went to Winthrop and University of South Carolina and lived in California a while after I got married. My husband was in the service. And then I lived in Columbia for 50 years and loved moving to Still Hopes, and I'm just amazed by our wonderful staff and all the interesting people who live here. So I'm just very thankful for my life. When I first came, I was able to plant and enjoy my little garden. I'm on the first floor and have a patio garden. And I thoroughly enjoyed that, but I'm not able to keep it up now. And reading, I guess, would be, I claim that because I certainly still like to read in spite of having to do it with a magnifying glass. I had some of my hobbies before I came to Still Hopes. I had a lovely flower garden. I just loved keeping up with flowers, and it wasn't formal. I guess you'd say it was more like an English garden because I had quite a variety. I tried to be conscious of colors, which colors were next to each other, and I enjoyed having a variety of heights, the border, and then right on up to the background trees. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed gardening, and those were the main things. I enjoyed my connection to my church, and I spent a lot of time with various activities at my church, and I wish I could do that still, but I can't.
Well, that was a great session. Really enjoyed hearing from all of our friends and all of our staff members here at Still Hopes for Healthy Dynamics. Thank you so much for participating with us and letting us learn more about you. I want to let you know to be sure and check your boxes because there is chocolate there. Since we can't all be together, we are bringing chocolate to you, and it is packaged with sanitized and gloved hands. So it is in your boxes this afternoon. Just a peek at next month's Healthy Dynamics. That will be on September 24th at 3 o'clock. And the title of that session will be For the Beauty of the Earth, a tour of Still Hopes grounds. And we will have with us our special guest, Chris Spearing, who is our landscape and grounds supervisor. Very excited about that, so look forward to that with Chris. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and take care. Bye-bye.